Welcome to Where Medicine Meets Ministry. Dr. Cherie Talks Faith and Facts, a podcast that explores the relationship between faith and facts and its divine impact on the coexistence of mind, body, and spirit. Here's Dr. Cherie, a medical doctor, best-selling author, international professional speaker, a breast cancer survivor, and the queen of how to let go and live today and every day.
Oh my goodness, welcome you guys. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Where Medicine Meets Ministry. Dr. Cherie Talks Faith and Facts. My guest today is none other than Donna Fairhurst. This woman is an intuitive life and soul transition coach. She's a Reiki Master, a psychic medium, and a holistic practitioner of many healing modalities that complement traditional medicine. She was born nearly blind, survived polio, cancer, 3 near-death experiences, not 1, not 2, but 3 near-death experiences. And I haven't even begun to scratch the surface and couldn't begin to do her life's journey justice. So without further ado, please help me welcome Ms. Donna Fairhurst. Donna, welcome to the show this morning.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Cherie. I am so honored and excited to be here with you and anyone that's listening. This is truly a time to share.
Yes, it is. Now, I have tons of questions for you, so I need to just jump right on in. First, can you tell us about your childhood? Because I can't imagine what it was like, or must have been like, being born nearly blind and having to battle polio. I mean, what was that like?
I don't remember it as being hugely difficult because I was a child and I was blessed to have 2 extremely loving and diverse and different parents who worked in harmony together from really different backgrounds, different faiths, different upbringings. My mother was an only child. My father came from a huge French Canadian family. She lost her mother very young. My father lived in this big family and launched himself very young. So they were very independent, very free thinkers, and they weren't expecting to have children. My mother was told she would never have children, and so I was their first and a blessing. And I didn't know that I was nearly blind. We lived on a remote rural ranch in southwestern Alberta. The closest neighbor was 30 kilometers away. So we really I didn't have any interaction. I was an infant and I just saw everything through, I call the lens of God. God sees us as all colors, all stripes, everything that is, because that's what we are. So as a young child, I had no idea that I was different, except from reactions my parents had to what they called my dreams, or I was born talking to angels and talking to spirit, and it was normal for me, and there was nobody for the better part to tell me that it wasn't. It wasn't until we moved away from the ranch and into the city. I'll back up. I contracted polio at age 1 on the day my brother was nearly 8 weeks premature born. And so my mother was in one city. She'd gone to buy baby things with a friend to the city. So it was quite a distance away, went into labor, early labor, and went into the General Hospital in Calgary. In the meantime, the cook at our ranch found me slumped over in a fever when he went to check on me. My dad was out with the cattle, of course, and came in to find me running a high fever, ran me into the hospital, was diagnosed with polio. It was the epidemic of 1952 in southern Alberta. Thousands of children and adults were affected, but primarily young people. And I was one of the lucky ones where due in large part to my step-grandmother and my father and mother's really astoundingly aware care at the time, I survived. And it was 2 years of fighting back to get my strength and that back. Initially, because my mother had this newborn premature baby boy living on a ranch with 40 workers running cattle and doing all of this. She couldn't care for a child with polio and a newborn infant and run the ranch. And it was a bit of a shock for her. She was still very young. So she sent me to Lethbridge, 60 miles away, to live with my step grandmother and grandfather. And that was, a blessing for me, because I had this undivided time of these two grandparents. And in addition, my step grandmother was one of the forefront women in our province studying nutrimedicine. On her own. She had no degrees or anything. She was a housekeeper her whole life and a caregiver her whole life, but she studied all of this, and she joined a company called Nutrimedics, and she was, it was all natural vitamins and minerals. And so she was really using me as a guinea pig. And I was just a 1-year-old child. How could I argue? So she filled me with all these vitamin and minerals, which I really believe kept me mobile. I was not paralyzed. I lost all of my muscle strength and ability. And so I could stand up, but then I would fall down because my muscles weren't strong enough. And I had twitchy muscles as well. So, I had diverse physiotherapies. My grandparents took me swimming and rubbed my body with essential oils all the time. My parents, when they got me back to the ranch and I was healthier, my father would sit me. Do you remember you're too young. We had these old floor polishers for hardwood floors, and they were big kind of metal iron blocks with brushes on them, and they were quite big, and it took a really strong person to pull and push these across the floors. So you'd use the brush to do the first shine with the wax, and then you'd put a big chamois underneath or an old towel, and you'd go over top. So my father would sit me on this and kind of strap me on it, and he would push me across the floor, and my feet would be going to do it, and then he would say, pull yourself back. And he would be helping me, but only as much as he had to. And every day he would help me a little bit less. He would strap me on the back of a horse on a saddle blanket with my arms and legs strapped around the haunches of the horse. And then he would run that horse around and around the paddock. And those big muscles were massaging me all the time. My mother would sit me on a milk pail on her treadle sewing machine, and I'm dating myself. We had a treadle sewing machine, and she would tie my feet onto the base that you pedaled, and then she would sew miles. And then she'd turn me and put me on a pillow with a horse blanket and lie me with my arms on there, and she would treadle, and my hands would be going like this. My father would tie me on his back, and he would swim miles up and down the shores of Chain Lake with me on his back. And when I was strong enough and they had taught me to swim, they put me in this big 40-foot horse trough, and they would make me swim 40 feet back and forth. I became an extremely good swimmer, and actually a competitive swimmer, and taught and coached swimming overseas later in my life. I believe in large part to that. So
in other words, your diagnoses didn't stop you. One, I want individuals to appreciate that life will happen. You were born with gifts. And so one, you were born with gifts, but then life happened. So the gifts and talents that God allowed you to be born with did not excuse you from the ails of life. Meaning, although you were gifted and came out of the womb speaking and communicating with angels and with spirits, God still did not allow for trauma not to happen and to intrude upon your life. But your parents and your grandparents, they worked, and that intrusion in your life actually placed you in a new environment that allowed your gifts to further be honed, to give you the healing gifts and power and oils and teaching that you needed. But you also forged a stronger relationship, I would imagine, with your grandparents. Mm-hmm. Your parents were certainly very active in your life, and they thought of unique and intrinsic ways to help make sure that your muscles regained their strength and that you still had some sense of normalcy to your life, although they had to raise you and probably treat you very different than, let's say, your neighbor that was 30 kilometers, away. Their child maybe not affected by polio, not born nearly blind. They probably had a more traditional upbringing than you did, but that non-traditional upbringing forged and created the woman that I'm looking at and talking to today.
Well, my parents weren't even aware that I was legally blind. They didn't find that out until I was nearly 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
But because of the, and because of the environment we lived in, there was no litmus test. There were no other young children close to me that I played with on a daily basis that would say, oh, she's weird or strange or different. And my parents were very busy. They were very involved, not just in our where we worked and lived, but in the community, in the church. And they came from very different religions. My father was Roman Catholic. My mother was born Anglican, and then Lutheran, and then Baptist, and then United Church. I mean, she went through the whole Protestant spectrum, and my father just kind of stayed where he was. I am a non-practicing believer. In other words, I believe in God. I have a faith. I was raised with a religion till I was 14, and I've been really kind of too busy to bother with it. So high holidays and, weddings and funerals, we were in his church. Most of the time we were within my mother's, but my mother and father had this agreement when they got married that if by some miracle they were blessed with a child, they would not superimpose either of their religions or faith on the child. Rather, they would raise us to honor and respect and be kind with all faiths, and allow that there are many roads to God, and that none of them are wrong, none of them are evil. The journey is from where we are born, God-given, to God, whatever that means for us. And as long as we live in alignment with the laws of spirit, and primarily, which the number one is love thy neighbor. And number two is, when you can't love your neighbor, the law of grace comes in. Grace is your get out of jail free card. When you can't feel the love, you can act with grace regardless of what's happening. And I was raised with that feeling that there was nothing that I couldn't do if I set my mind to it.
That's powerful.
Yes, if you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, think about it and, come back and revisit it.
Correct.
But it was great. I mean, my parents took us to Sikh temple. They took us to every church within 100-mile radius of us several times over the period of our lives. And so we had Jewish friends, Baptist friends, Anglican friends, Catholic friends, Muslim friends, Sikh friends. It was, for the time and the era that I was born, it was a gift of diversity and inclusion that very few people in my generation where I lived had. You were born in your lane, you stayed in your lane.
Mm-hmm.
And where my parents were in every respect, whether it was religion or education or sports, there are many lanes.
Correct.
And there are many gifts. And unless you try a little bit of all of them, you don't know where you fit.
Yeah, Donna, your upbringing and your continued exploration into the variety of roads to God, as you stated, the number of paths to God, I would say not only was that the chance at variety not routine when you were born, it's still the same way today. I mean,
Exactly.
Most of the time when children are born, whether it's to a family with both parents or one parent, typically that child is going to go to church or experience spirituality or experience a religion based upon the primary person in that family that is responsible for the spiritual intake and uptake of the children in that home. And so exploring the variety, I didn't get an opportunity to explore variety until really when I was in my master's program, seeking a master's in theological studies. Now in college, I dibbled and dabbled simply because of certain schoolwork, but it wasn't until I was taking that type of coursework that I was required to. Mm-hmm. I would kind of branch out on my own, but it really wasn't a necessity, if you will. The master's program made it a necessity, and it opened my eyes. It shook off some of the shackles that I had been brought up into this box. And it opened up my understanding that that your relationship with the Lord, your relationship with God, your relationship with others, and your understanding of the basic principle and concept of love it has internally been placed in you, and you can either allow yourself to be guided and directed by what other people's opinions of what you should or should not do, or you can develop and grow this own personal relationship with God and allow him to reason with you the way you were always intended to interact with him. We're not made so that every relationship with God is the same. If he brought us into this world as different and unique individuals, why would we think that our path to him would be exactly the same? And why would we think if my path is slightly different that you're right and I'm wrong? And so I love your upbringing, because now you bring in this new mindset. And I'm thinking we talked about you not even realizing or even comprehending that you were near blind. I mean, just because of the circumstances. We talked about the polio, but what we haven't talked about is, one, you were also diagnosed with cancer.
Well,
How did that diagnose impact your life?
I'd just like to take 1 second to dip back to the near blind.
Sure.
That in itself was not a tragedy. A, I didn't realize I was. B, my parents didn't realize I was. And C, that lens that I saw through was so beautiful because I saw all the colors of the universe in a way that other people didn't. It also empowered me to learn in different ways. I had to use all of my senses, and this seemed natural because I didn't see and didn't know that I didn't see the way other children saw. Everything was normal to me. But what happened with my sight is when I wanted to see, when I felt like there was more I could see and I was moving into it because I would have to go very close to see things. In the meantime, my sense of taste, my sense of smell, my sense of touch, my sense of hearing were amplified 2000%. And because I used all of my senses, there are very few education experiences on a regular daily basis, especially within our standard school systems, where our children are using whole brain integrated brain science. We are not using more than 10% of our brain 90% of the time.
So true.
I was gifted. This was a blessing and a gift that I had to use all of my senses every single moment of my waking day for my life to be complete. As a result, I learned to read by the time I was 3 years old. My mother would hold books really close to me. She would read out loud to me. I would hear the words. I could then get them close and see them. We used blocks. I had to use my sense of touch. She would spell out, the old-fashioned wooden blocks with the raised letters. That gave me a sense of always being able to trust the universe to bring me what I needed to hear, see, do, feel, think. And then later on in my life, when I was challenged with, by that time I had moved overseas. I was living in a predominantly huge Muslim country surrounded by Muslims who were the most fantastic people I can ever tell you about. I was blessed to have 12 and a half years in that country and meet so many different people, Buddhists and Muslims, and there was a huge international community. That's when I had cancer. The first time, and I was in my early 30s, late 20s, early 30s when it started, and I had an extended period of 5 years where I battled it, and it reoccurred about 8 years later, and I was able to deal with it. I was blessed to be in Singapore, where the highly trained, British trained Chinese doctors speaking English were also very attuned to Chinese medicine and naturopathy in their own sphere of education. And so although they operated from the traditional medical model, they were very attuned to listening to people talking about their bodies and what was happening. They were also attuned to acupuncture and acupressure before it became even something really used and utilized and known about in Western society. And so I had a whole raft of different ways of healing presented to me. I was blessed to have two mentors, a Coptic Egyptian priest and a Jesuit priest from very different ages and very different countries, talk with me about prayer and faith and leaning into our own ability to connect with God on a personal level and heal, and that it was our choice, that we have many gates that we are given. And these are the gates is something I brought back from one of my near-death experiences. But I had the first I was actually, apparently it's 4 times. Apparently I died of a high fever when they were doing spinal tap. When I had polio, they brought me back. I don't remember. I'm just told by my father. The first time was the first surgery I had when they discovered my tumor. And I died on the table. And, the typical one that you hear about, it was very traditional, if you can call something like that traditional, is that, I didn't zoom out of my body into the light. I was in the light. I was on the table and I was surrounded by light. I was there, and yet I was not there. And I had my first realization that something was strange was that in the moment of the anxiety of me dying, all of my beautifully English speaking Chinese doctors suddenly started spouting everything in Mandarin and were speaking Chinese. And I understood everything that they were saying. And the only person that was speaking English in the room was my doctor's nurse assistant, who was what you would call a doctor, a nurse practitioner now, like next to a doctor. And she was holding, her name was Lily, and she was holding my one hand, that wasn't being strapped and everything done to it. And she was just holding like the tips of my fingers. She was saying, stay with me, we're here. You don't have to go. Stay here. I've got you. And that was just so strange, to feel that love. I could feel the love and the will to keep me there coming through her fingers into mine. And yet I wasn't there on the table. That was my body. And I was out of my body. And then I didn't have the tunnel experience. I went from a room filled with white light into this rainbow of light, which I was very familiar with because that's kind of the way I see the world. You all look like this beautiful, crazy Christmas tree to me. And I was suddenly there was more light, and the light got kind of diffused like fog. And then I saw all these different lights coming towards me, and they were many different colors. And that was, my heart just filled with joy because, I recognized those colors. I recognized those souls. And I thought that was my spiritual, just my knowing. And yet my rational mind, which my ego mind was still operating, and it was saying, what's happening here? What's going on? Do you know where you are? We need to go back. Something is wrong here. And yet my spirit soul body was saying, I need to join. This is where I belong. And then one light kind of separated, came really fast towards me. And it was my father, who had passed 5 years earlier. And I recognized him immediately, both as a soul and as a body. I can't even describe how you can feel and see the face and body of your loved one and yet you see the energy as well.
Yes.
And he came forward and I said, Dad, I don't belong here. I've got to go back. I've got babies. This can't happen. My husband doesn't even know I'm out of the country. I've been rushed out of the country to Singapore. My husband was in another part of Indonesia working on a job, and he had no idea I had been rushed out of the country, and yet that I was, having this emergency surgery. And so it was crazy. And these spirits just said, you know, that was, I gotta say that no matter what happens, no matter where you are, who you're with, wherever it is, what's happening, you are held in the arms of love, regardless of how life-threatening, how critical, how demoralizing, how whatever the hows are, whatever those howevers are, you are held and you are loved, and you come from love and you go back to love. And in that space, there is no judgment. Judgment is a human construction. We read about it, we pray about it, we think about it, and it is BS. On the other side, there is no judgment. That is a human construction.
Yes.
And I've had people, Dr. Sri, challenge me about that. They'll say, you know, what about Hitler? What about Osama bin Laden? What about whatever? What about the killers, the murderers, the child abusers? And my response, with deepest respect, is that is a life and a choice that you made due to the journey and the circumstances for your soul's growth. That soul, however challenged, what you would perceive as evil, what you would perceive as bad, that soul here in this lifetime would be judged as that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
When that soul dies, that soul goes to heaven just as much as the other ones, because God has no judgment. God
unconditional love.
Unconditional love.
Always. There is nothing.
Always.
When I'm witnessing to individuals and we're talking about the Lord, I stress all the time, you are loved unconditionally. There is nothing that you can do that will stop him from loving you. There is nothing that you can say. Now, we strive. That's why God gave us that commandment. This is my commandment, that ye love one another. And love one another as I have loved the church. And so love is always at the center. We fall short because we are still striving for that perfect love. We are still striving to surrender and give that unconditional love. And this human nature says that if you hurt me, if you wound me, then one, there should be this punishment, and two, I have something against you. Whereas God, we wound God all of the time. I mean, when you think about it, we're not perfect. So we are committing sins. We are falling short. We are, in our efforts to demonstrate this perfect and unconditional love, we fall short. But God never turns his back on us. But we, being that fallible person that we are, tend to consciously make sense out of it. And the way we make sense out of it is, if you do something wrong, or if you do something harmful, one, there should be a punishment, and two, there should be a disconnect between me and you. If God saw us that way, oh my God, what type of life would we have? We would not have any. And it is not our place. If you can say that, that there are certain sins or certain people who have done so much that I know that they're going to hell. When you stop and compare, now you're trying to compare your sinful life to someone else's sinful life. And like you appropriately stated, their lives and their actions were governed by the life and the experiences that they lived. So maybe you would have acted in a similar construct had organically your brain been made a different setup differently, or life experiences had placed you in a particular place. But if at the end of the day, wrong is wrong, who are we to say that your level of wrong is such that your actions require you to go to hell, but my sin wasn't so bad, so I get to go to heaven? You see what I'm saying? Sin is sin, and we have unconditional love. And at the end of the day, I'm not God without a heaven or a hell to even send you to. So let's not focus on that. Let's focus on the here and now. And the here and now says the one commandment that we have to live by is love one another as you love yourself. Boom.
The thing that I found was that there is no part, I mean, what God is is a universal energy of love, and we are all part of that infinite thread of love. And there are longer threads and shorter threads, thicker threads, thinner threads, colored threads, non-colored threads, and it's all woven together. And there is, I love Neil Donald Walsh. We are, the way he coins it, as we are all God-godding, because we are all an infinite part of God, regardless of our race, religion, creed, color, construction. And there, on the other side, there's a mind. We operate in the human construction from a mind map, and the degree to which we can marry our mind map with our heart map is the degree to which we can meld and integrate into what I call sacred soul self. And sacred soul self is a human being that is that surrenders to love and to peace, and is committed to community and cooperation. And that surrender allows us to be awakened. It allows us to access the principle of calm. It allows us to be open to receive even more of all that is. And it is ever evolving. From the moment we leave spirit as a soul and we come back into a human incarnation, of which we have many, we go back out with the lessons that we learned. All the laws of spirit, all the commandments, whatever religion you want to come and operate from, are man-written but God-given. Now, there is an open area of interpretation, which allows for the diversity of religious thought and religious studies. So it doesn't matter whether you're Muslim, Jewish, Coptic, Christian, it does not matter. It only matters that you're on the path to evolving to a higher standing, a higher level of spiritual being. And when you are that evolving, when you blink out, you're going back into divine. We are all part of divinity. We are God-godding, and God is godding through us. And the degree to which we raise and live from and love and give and are in service first to ourselves. You see, you have to be in service to yourself to be in service to anyone else. Absolutely. That is the essence of sacred soul self. And the soul is inclusive. A soul is illuminated. A soul is operates at an optimal level of awareness, and they're optimistic. They bring unity to the world. They are invested in a unified world at all levels. And that is liberating. It is about liberating all souls to be who they are, where they are, how they are. And that brings more light to the world. And when we bring that light to the world, we shine a mirror for everything and everyone. And that mirror, that vision links us all together. And the degree to which we can do that and be that and feel that. I tell people, you're either a human being or you're a human doing. If you're doing and you know what you end up? A lot of doo-doo. It's not pretty. And you won't be satisfied. And those are and it's not even about being satisfied. It's about being calm and coherent and present.
Yes, calm, coherent, and present.
Yes.
Wow. Now, okay, so so calm, coherent, and present. It truly is about that. But I've also heard you state that the power of your word creates your reality.
Oh my God, dear God.
Can you expound on that principle?
Well, what happens when you're going to construct something about yourself? You always say, I am, right?
Yes.
Literally, in the earliest evolution of language, I am is the name of God in every religion, in every construction. So think of when I'm coaching, I tell my clients, think of I as the antenna. The antenna to God. When you say I, you are opening a direct channel to God, and you are declaring something to the universe, to God, to yourself, to the people that are listening. When you say I am, you are actualizing the possibility of manifesting a miracle. Because when you say, I am, you have now opened this direct link. The direct link is listening, and they're saying, okay, tell me what you are, tell me what you want, tell me where you're going, tell me what you're bringing to the world, tell me what you need to take away from the world. I'm here, I'm listening, I am ready to serve you, which is exactly what God, all the angels, all our spiritual guides are all they want to do is help us evolve.
Curve. Yes.
It's the curve. And when you say I am, let me tell you something. Whatever comes after am, it better be positive, it better be serving, it better be uplifting, it better be something that you want to live into, because whatever you declare you are, that's exactly the energy you're going to get.
That's right.
So if you say, I'm happy today, your angels, your guides, your guardians, God, he, she, herself says, wow, you're happy. Let's give you more happy. Here's the check in the mail. Here's the new car you wanted. Here's that job you were looking for. Oh, the phone's ringing. It's your mother who hasn't called you in a year because you had this is what happens. All of the experience comes in. When you say, well, I'm feeling kind of sad today. My kids got the measles and yeah, I should have gone to that shop, but I didn't. But oh well, we'll live through it. But I just feel tired. And they're thinking, oh well, here she goes again. I wish she could have made a better choice, but this is what she's declaring herself to be. She's sad. She's tired. She's lonely. Okay, well now here the keys are lost when she goes to get the keys. She finally gets the keys. She goes to get in the car. She's got a flat tire. She's got to call the garage. The garage says it won't be there for 2 hours. Are you getting the picture?
Yes.
More and more experience of sad is coming to you. So when you say I am, and we must honor our feelings. If we're feeling sad, it's a feeling. If we're feeling mad, it's a feeling. If we're feeling lonely, it's a feeling. A feeling that is negative that gets stuck in our body creates disease. Disease creates lack of ease, which creates disease in our body. Our body responds not just to the nutrients we feed it, it responds to the words, the messages that we give it from our brain and from our heart. Now, when our heart is feeling sad, we don't want that sadness trapped in our body. We have a lot of ways to get it out. We can urinate, we can defecate, we can cry, we can sneeze. I always say where energy goes, fluid flows. You need to move. You need to move that energy out of your body. You can dance it out. You can sing it out. You can cry it out. It doesn't matter how you do it. It matters that you move the energy out, the feeling out of your body, so that there is room and space for healing and something better to come in.
Wow.
Unless you do that, all the medicines in the world are not going to help you. And that's why I love, have you ever read Dr. Brian Weiss?
No, I have not.
Many Lives, Many Masters. You've got to read this.
Okay.
So he, over his long years of medical practice, he discovered that he knew when he was going to give a person a diagnosis of cancer. And I read him because I had cancer. So he decided that he had a way of reading people after a while. After many years, he knew when a person sat down in front of him and he was going to give them a diagnosis of cancer, he knew within 3 seconds whether that person was going to live or die. He said in that 3 seconds, somewhere in their body, in their psyche, in their mind, they made the choice whether they were going to live or die. And if they had a negative mindset and a negative allowance for themselves, most likely they were going to have a very difficult time, and they likely weren't going to survive unless their mindset and their heart set changed and married each other. That's where I tell you about bringing the mind map and the heart map together to create that sacred soul self space. In that sacred soul self space is the space and the intention for healing.
Yes.
All that God wants for us is to be healed.
Yes.
To be healed of anything that hurts, bothers, impedes our evolution as a human being and a soul. God experiences humanity through us, through our triumphs and our tragedies, and the degree to which we acknowledge and don't pretend that we're something that we're not, that we work through we all have a life path, a life purpose when we come in as a soul, and we are here to learn and integrate and to expand on the lessons we didn't learn in a previous life. And those are soul lessons. These are spiritual laws that we have to live into further and fully. And as we live into them, the laws expand. They don't contract. They get bigger so that we can evolve with the laws. And when we evolve with the laws and that expansion comes into it, we are in ultimate sacred cooperation with Source. And in that space, we can heal anything.
Anything.
We can
heal anything. Now, you've created 9 steps for clearing, cleaning, and amping up your energy to live on purpose, in purpose, with purpose, wherever you are and whatever you are doing, whoever you are with here and now. So with those 9 steps, what is the time frame that you take your clients through in order to make it through these 9 steps? And do all of your clients, do you see a need that they all need to go through the 9 steps, or are there some people, like say in your intake, they've gotten through, maybe steps 1 through 5, and they really just need to hone in on certain steps? Are you able to discern and delineate which steps a particular client should go through, or is it healthy to go through it all so that we reach a new level of understanding, interpretation, and being?
I meet everybody where they are in the moment, and define where their journey, what they've brought from their journey with them to that point, and what their vision is. Or even if a lot of people come to me, they don't have a vision for their life. They're stuck. They need transformation. They need to figure out how to pivot. So first of all, there's some golden rules that I live with, 10 golden rules that I live with. But my program is called Zero to Clarity. And through it, the first thing we do is explore their energy centers. A lot of people don't know that all they are is energy, and that this is just a bus. Your body is a bus that carries your soul around. And your soul is nothing but color and this infinite love full of information that is going to take you to the next level of physical, mental. It's a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual experience that we're having. So I teach from all 4 dimensions. I teach modalities of all 4 dimensions. I teach auras and chakras. I teach about Reiki healing. My Zero to Clarity program has 9 modules. Your true colors, which is energy, resonance, the function of energy, your chakras and energy fields, how to feel them in your body, to know where they are in your body, to know what emotions are attached to that are either serving you or non-serving. You have serving and non-serving emotions. You have serving and non-serving cords that attach. We attach an energy cord. You and I are attached right now. And we will be forever because we're having this conversation. Now, if it was a negative experience, would I want to keep that cord attached? No, I'd want to be able to cut that cord and say, I can stand in this power. I don't need that negative energy. But our cord is a serving cord, which will be forever and ever because we choose it. We choose serving and non-serving cords. We also choose whether to cut them or keep them. And there are many, many cords that are necessary. The cords to your family, to your children, to your source, to your community, your cord to God. It's all necessary. Then I teach I am, which is the power of your word, your clarion call to the universe, I call it. How are you expressing your I am? And what is that bringing to you in your world? And how can you change that if you want it to be better? I have a Zero to Clarity toolkit. Everybody receives one of these. This is the one that I first made for myself. And in this are 9 tools that I use and I encourage my clients to use every day. The first one is a clearing prayer. The second one, and this is a clearing and manifesting prayer. It works on I am if you're not using your words correctly. Every one of these has I am in them, and it teaches you how to use them. I use an angel invocation, which is very specific. Angels are not humans. They are eternal spirits of love, and they do not have a brain like we have a brain. They don't function through doing. They are a being of love that are gifted to us. There are many, many universes and many, many planets where there is other life that exists, and they all have an angelic realm. We have one that is specific to Earth. The thing about them is they want us to ask them. We have free will. Angels do not have free will. They are just divinely guided by God all the time. And as such, they want to be asked. They don't want to interfere. They will help us in times of extreme need. And I've been the beneficiary of that many times. So when that happens, you know you've had an angelic interruption or intervention or expression of love. It's so cool. So ask your angels, call on them every day. And there are hundreds of angels that interact with us. We hear about our guardian angel, your guardian angel. Well, the fact is you have 4 around you all the time. You have a mental angel, a physical angel, an emotional angel, and a spiritual angel that is working with you all the time in those 4 dimensions. Then you have what I call source angels that source different things that you need and bring them in to your field. And then you have angels that come and go. And then you have what I call the 4 big guns that are really the archangels over all of Earth. And that's Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel. And they are the healing, powerful angels that command all of the realm of angels that work with us. So call on them. When you're having a problem with owning your power and you're feeling disenfranchised, call on Michael. He's a mighty warrior, but he's a warrior for love. So he will not empower you to do anything that is not invested in love. Gabriel will bring you the ability to heal and work with children, and like all teachers, every teacher of any stripe, call on Gabriel. Raphael is going to bring you healing and joy and love and purpose and commitment. He's about committing to things and seeing them through. Uriel, I call on him every day because I'm fondly known in my family as Technosaurus Rex. Anything that has to do, as I know you got my message. I can't get in the link, So, I am a Technosaurus. I own that. God helps me with it every day. And I say, I know I am this. I am trying to change. I am feeling better about it all the time. God, work with me some more. Let me master this Zoom. So, we all have challenges. I'm thinking, oh dear God, I can conquer polio, I can conquer blindness, I can conquer cancer 3 times, and I can't manage the darn computer. I mean, give me a break, God. So it's mind bending.
It is.
So back to the Zero to Clarity program, I teach infinite unity and the principles of infinite unity, your life and soul purpose, and what those laws are and how they play out or don't play out in your life. I teach the calm principle, which is about how to operate with calm regardless of what's happening in your life. You can either be in incoherence and chaos, or you can be in calm and coherence, and it's a choice. And there's a step program that you can define in any moment, however weird, wild, wonderful, wacky, or horrible it is. You can define whether you're in incoherence or you're in coherence, whether you're in chaos or you're in calm. Right. And there are 6 simple steps to define that. When you're in calm, you are in valuation, not evaluation. You are in non-judgment, not judgment. You are creating soulful, exclamation mark, FULL, a full solution. You are heart-based, you are in cooperation, and when you do that, the cycle repeats. And it repeats and brings you more calm. Now, how do you know when you're in chaos and incoherence, when you're in the mind map?
Well, Donna, don't give it away. Don't give it away, because this clearly has to be a 2-part series, because you have, it's a wealth of information, and I want individuals to be able to process what all you have shared. What you have shared today could be written into a novel if we really took time out to spell it out. And I want individuals to play this and replay it, because you have created and have given sound bites that individuals can write out a soundbite and come up with about 100 different post-its that they need to place around their house to reinforce who they are, God's plan for their life, who they are and what they want. They need to have the time to practice the I am principle. That's what I'm calling it from now, the I am principle. But
And that's what it is. I have the I am principle, the calm principle, sacred soul self, the principle of grace. I have it all.
You have it all. So now that we're approaching the end of our hour, for this first segment, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience? And that could be, one, how they can get in touch with you, because there are some people that are listening and they need help now. They don't need to wait for the second show. They need help now. So ways that individuals can get in touch with you or find out what you have. I know that you have offered up some resources, which I will make sure is in the show notes so that they can access it and utilize it. But I'm going to give you the opportunity. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience at this time?
You can find everything about me and how to contact me on my website. That's the one tool you need. www.Donna, D-O-N-N-A, Fairhurst, F-A-I-R-H-U-R-S-T, Fairhurst, www.donnafairhurst.com. My email is donna@donnafairhurst.com, and my office phone number is 778-622-1743.
Guys, I'm going to make sure that all of that contact information is in the show notes. Thank you again for listening to yet another episode of Where Medicine Meets Ministry. Dr. Cherie talks faith and facts. And stay tuned for the second part 2 with Donna Fairhurst, because there was simply too much for us to cover in this little short segment. But you got to get it in sound bites so that you can make it real and internalize this information so that you can walk on and live in the brand new life that God has always intended for you. Until next time.
You've reached the end of another episode of Where Medicine Meets Ministry. Dr. Cherie talks faith and facts. Be sure to visit medicinemeetsministrypodcast.com to join the conversation and to view the show notes for this episode. And follow us on Facebook at Where Medicine Meets Ministry and on Twitter at Med Meets Men. That's M-E-D meets M-I-N. If you love the Where Medicine Meets Ministry podcast, we'd love to hear from you. To subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes. And to connect with Dr. Cherie, go to drcheriemd.com. drscherimd.com. Until next time.